There is a shadow that falls upon a man who has surrendered his vital force, a psychological gravity that begins to weigh down his spirit long before it touches his body. You feel it, don't you? That subtle, creeping heaviness which isn't always obvious but resides behind the eyes, a dullness that belies an inner emptiness. It settles in the posture, an invisible stoop in the shoulders, and hollows out the voice, making conviction sound like a question. Before we dive into the secrets of semen retention power, make sure you subscribe now and join our Telegram family. The link's in the description. Don't miss the exclusive insights and daily motivation that will keep your energy, focus, and discipline unstoppable. Your success journey starts today. This is the man who navigates life with an inherent caution, perpetually afraid to assert his worth or to speak his truth with unshakable firmness. He lives tethered to a screen, scrolling into the void, chasing a flicker of digital stimulation to momentarily fill the vast space of his growing loneliness. Yet, every single indulgence, every momentary surrender, serves only to deepen that chasm within his soul. This existence, marked by hesitation and perpetual seeking, is the default state of the man who has allowed his essence to be forgotten. He has permitted the demands of modern comfort and instantaneous pleasure to strip him not just of his discipline and purpose, but of the sacred energy that resides in his core, his creative seed. The ancient practice of retention is not just an arbitrary exercise in abstinence. It functions as an unblinking mirror, reflecting the stark reality of your character when the world's gaze is averted. A strong, purposeful man can successfully retain because his entire mind is governed by an overarching mission. His thoughts are disciplined, and his body operates under the absolute command of his superior will. Conversely, the weak man fails to retain because he has not yet established ownership over his own inner landscape. His mind, still unmastered, dictates his actions. His primal lust commands his movements, and the intoxicating pursuit of comfort defines his boundaries. When a primal urge surfaces, he instantly obeys. When desire calls, he mindlessly achieves. He is not the master of his own biological nature. He is its most obedient slave. The deepest cut is the knowledge of this internal betrayal. Down in the quiet chambers of the soul, every man possesses the painful awareness of his own weakness. He knows the precise moment he has traded his potential for an ephemeral pleasure. The instant after the act, there is that brutal, crystalline silence, the cold weight of shame, and the inescapable internal whisper, "You failed yourself, again." He immediately pledges, with temporary fervor, that this lapse will be the last. Yet, as the next night descends, he finds his fingers back in the familiar, dark pattern, scrawling, searching, and ultimately, submitting. He might rationalize this as mere addiction, but it is a far more insidious and chronic condition. It is a systematic habit of habitual weakness, and retention stems from a profound lack of inner architecture. Such minds are built precariously on sand, unstable and easily collapsed. They have failed to construct an internal code of honor, an all-consuming mission, or a purpose so demanding that it necessitates the absolute maximization of their strength. Retention, in its highest form, demands a worthy objective, a monumental cause to fight for, something far greater and more compelling than the hollow satisfaction of momentary, base pleasure. Without this towering purpose, the enormous, concentrated energy of the conserved life force has no constructive conduit. In the wisdom of ancient traditions, this mechanism was profoundly understood. Young men were never merely commanded to abstain. They were rigorously trained to channel the surging energy. They engaged in creation, in building, in physical combat, and in disciplined, spiritual practice. They deliberately took that powerful internal fire and gave it concrete form through art, through relentless mastery of a craft, and through selfless, arduous service. The weak man cannot commit to the discipline of retention because he has not yet experienced the necessary, transformative suffering required to awaken his self-respect. He has not yet reached that critical precipice where the sight of his own weakness and wasted potential fills him with profound, galvanizing disgust. Until that moment of reckoning arrives, until he looks deeply at his reflection and truly feels the suffocating weight of his squandered destiny, the cycle of falling will continue. But the instant that pain is transmuted into an unyielding resolve, everything within his life begins a seismic shift. He recognizes with brutal clarity that every past release was a small, unnecessary death, and every indulgence was a direct theft of his own greatness. When this truth anchors itself deep within his being, something ancient and powerful stirs a quiet, absolute rebellion, a steel-cold refusal to fall back into the darkness. This is the authentic genesis of strength. But the truth is far simpler and infinitely more challenging. His man is deeply undisciplined, woefully untrained, and profoundly addicted to the narcotic of comfort. He has utterly failed to construct the mental and spiritual fortress necessary to contain and command his own colossal energy. When a man succumbs to the pull of lust, the true event is a mental collapse. His thoughts ignite as small, flickering sparks, at first, seemingly innocent or playful. But because his mind is weak, he welcomes them in, entertaining them. He stares too long at the image. He indulges in the fantasy too vividly. He allows his attention to scroll too far down the path of least resistance. The disciplined man is a zealous guardian of his own thoughts because he understands that all energy follows attention. The object of your focus is what will inevitably flourish. If you constantly feed the garden of lustful thought through media, through music, through fantasy, it will bloom like an aggressive weed, powerfully choking out every single noble, higher impulse you possess. The mental state of the undisciplined man is not one of stillness. It is chaotic, restless, and constantly reaching outward for distracting stimulation. This chronic restlessness is a direct byproduct of his disconnection from a higher purpose. When a man has no compelling mission, his vital energy fragments and scatters indiscriminately. Without this clear direction, your raw energy will perpetually betray you. It will always seek the path of least resistance, the easiest outlet. And for the man unwilling to face discomfort, that path leads directly to immediate, shallow pleasure. In the trajectory of every man's life, there must come a moment of horrifying realization that lust is not just a small forgivable vice. It is the insidious, monumental destroyer of his potential. It is the relentless thief of his physical vitality, his mental discipline, and his spiritual power. Each time a man indulges in the vice of unmastered desire, his nervous system registers the shock. His authentic confidence dulls, his motivation evaporates, and his capacity for pursuing true, difficult greatness diminishes. He becomes grounded not in his inherent, dominant masculinity, but in the chaotic whim of his momentary impulse. Yet, it is utterly insufficient to merely resist or suppress lust. You cannot simply cage raw energy. Energy must be fundamentally transformed, transmuted. This critical understanding eludes most undisciplined men. They mistakenly believe retention is about agonizingly holding back, clenching their teeth, enduring the pain, and fighting against their own nature. True retention necessitates a heightened, almost painful awareness. It demands that a man be acutely conscious of every subtle impulse, every internal craving, every single thought that attempts to cunningly seduce him away from his chosen path of purpose. This awareness is not a passive observation. It is active, sharp, and militantly disciplined. The strong man views temptation not as an existential threat to be fled from, but as a deliberate, crucial opportunity to strengthen the very sinews of his will. Every successful resistance builds a mental callus, leaving his mind stronger, clearer, and far more resilient. Every indulgence weakens the exact mental muscle designed to contain his power. The greatest, most persistent enemy of the struggling man is not the external temptation itself. It is the insidious, internal voice of self-pity. He whispers comforting, destructive lies to himself, that life is inherently too hard, that urges are merely natural, that he is just human after all. While these statements contain a fragment of truth, these convenient excuses are the very chains that guarantee his continued bondage. Genuine strength never comes to the man who actively seeks to justify his own weakness. It belongs, only and always, to the man who bravely commits to transcending it. You cease to be a reactive mechanism. You become a deliberate, intentional architect of your life. You no longer require the fickle, external world to validate your worth because your entire energy becomes powerfully Once a man achieves this inner command, no external temptation, no surge of internal urge, no past weakness can truly touch him again. What? Because he has finally, decisively conquered the one and only battlefield where all power and all weakness are fundamentally born. The sacred, terrifying battlefield of the mind. Every man, eventually, must make the ultimate choice. Which of the two voices within him will he obey? There is the quiet, insistent whisper of the higher self, calling him constantly upward toward his destiny. And there is the loud, petulant cry of the lower self, perpetually pulling him down toward mediocrity. When a man makes the monumental decision to initiate authentic, lasting change, the war does not commence with the physical act of retention. It begins, uncompromisingly, with the truth. He must first establish unclouded self-awareness, stripped bare of all comforting excuses and all self-serving delusions. He must clearly see that his current compromised state is not a consequence of cruel fate or poor genetics, but the logical, natural outcome of his own unmastered choices. This realization is devastatingly painful. It burns away years of accumulated pride, ego, and the comforting fantasy that life was simply done to him. But it is only through the intensity of this cleansing fire that a man can truly awaken to his true potential. The weak man instinctively recoils from this pain because it registers as a form of personal annihilation, and in a spiritual sense, that is precisely what it is. It is the necessary death of the false, small self, the annihilation of the boy who lived only for fleeting pleasure and ease. On the other side of that, psychological death, stands the authentic man he was always ordained to be. The strong man does not emerge strong at birth. He riseth to power because he has courageously permitted the weak, subservient version of himself to die in the crucible of discipline. This fundamental shift marks the profound passage from the chaotic domain of boyhood into the grounded power of true manhood. The weak man is a consumer of external beauty and energy. The strong man is the disciplined creator of his own magnificence, internal reality. When this core transformation embeds itself, the entire external reality begins to spontaneously rearrange itself around his new vibration. His gait changes, his voice commands attention, and his actions are deliberate and preemptive. He stops desperately chasing things. He begins to effortlessly attract them, because his entire energy field is now whole, conserved, and powerfully complete. Nature unfailingly rewards the man who honors and conserves his sacred essence. He becomes a magnetic force because his entire presence is charged with something deeply sacred, life force unspent, untainted, and fiercely unspoiled. This is not parlor magic. It is pure, fundamental, energetic alignment. When you cease the careless hemorrhage of your energy on base, unmastered desires, that massive reservoir of power flows directly into your eyes, sharpens your posture, deepens your voice, and radiates through your aura. It animates every ambition and turbocharges your creative output. You will spontaneously find yourself wanting less of what is shallow and craving far more of what is challenging, enduring, and deeply meaningful. The cheap, fleeting dopamine cycle that once ruled your life begins to lose its desperate, controlling grip. What rises up powerfully to replace it is a single, massive, unyielding sense of purpose. The tragic truth is that the vast majority of men will never experience this profound shift because they perpetually quit before the deep, lasting changes set in. They relapse the instant things become uncomfortable. They give up when the initial, internal quietude descends. They retreat back to the destructive comfort that is slowly, surely killing their potential. Thus, they remain forever trapped in the draining, anxious, distracted cycle, completely unaware that the key to their absolute freedom was always sitting, patiently waiting, within their grasp. But you, the viewer, are not like those men. You would not have watched this far if you were. Something ancient is already stirring deep inside your core. That fierce, quiet fire, that gnawing spiritual restlessness, is telling you, shouting, in fact, that there is infinitely more to life than this demoralizing loop of cheap indulgence and crushing regret. That insistent voice you hear is your higher self. It is the part of you that adamantly remembers the man you were truly created to be. And its command is simple: rise. Retention is not a passive act of denial. It is the dynamic, active process of becoming strong enough to endure and wield the crushing weight of your own untapped potential. It is the deliberate act of containing the energy that can literally create human life, and redirecting that sublime power to create your magnificent, singular destiny. It is the ultimate transmutation of base desire into unshakable discipline, and that discipline into sovereign power. This sacred path is not designed to be easy. It is not meant to be comfortable. But this inherent difficulty is precisely what makes the discipline sacred and intensely powerful. Because every day you hold, every urge you resist, every deliberate choice of mastery over impulse, you are not just practicing abstinence, you are ruthlessly sculpting your highest self into something profound, something powerful, something divine. You are forging your enduring character, hardening your will into an unbreakable force, and tempering your spirit like steel. As the weeks inevitably turn into months, you will feel a fundamental, unstoppable shift within your very core, a quiet, burning sense of authority, an absolute inner command. You will realize, with stunning clarity, that you no longer operate at the mercy of chaotic urges. You are the one, the only one, giving the orders. The men of compromise cannot retain because they fear and flee from the difficult, necessary process of transformation. They are terrified of the silence, the internal struggle, and the deep, profound solitude. Yet, those exact conditions are the sacred womb where all genuine greatness is born. The strong man learns to sit patiently in those conditions, to breathe through the internal fire, and to allow that pressure to carve his entire being into tempered steel. He understands that temporary isolation is not a punishment handed down by fate. It is the necessary, intentional preparation of furnace, where true, lasting strength is eternally forged. When the inevitable urges rise like a storm, internalize this truth. That surge of raw feeling is the universe itself testing your worthiness. It is asking one single defining question: can you contain this immense power? If you can, you grow exponentially. If you fail, you fall back to the bottom. But even in the event of a momentary fall, you must rise immediately. Each time you resist for even a fraction longer, each time you fight with a slightly greater intensity, your inner will becomes more absolute and unbreakable. And very soon, the same surging energy that once tyrannically enslaved, you will be completely subdued and exist only to serve your greatest ambition. Because this is the ultimate, undeniable truth of the universe. There are no inherently weak men. There are only men who have not yet dared to fully awaken and harness their terrifying inherent strength. The creative essence is raw power. The disciplined mind is absolute command. And when these two forces are finally united, when a man achieves sovereignty over both, he becomes, by definition, utterly and permanently unstoppable. Walk this sacred path with an unbowed head and fierce pride. The external world may not initially comprehend your silence, your unnatural restraint, or your deep, non-negotiable discipline, but it does not need to understand. You are not undertaking this difficult work for the world's cheap applause. You are doing it for the sovereign man you are destined to become. When you look in the mirror weeks or months from now and see your eyes burning with life force again, know that this is just the beginning of your grand epic. When your confidence becomes a palpable force and your energy feels boundless, remember that this is the natural reward for your faithfulness to self. You are now in the process of reclaiming your sacred essence, your dominant masculinity, and your long-forgotten soul. Do not fear the necessary internal battle. Embrace it. Every single day of retention is a decisive, profound victory. Every temptation you successfully resist is incontrovertible proof that you are no longer the weak, reactive shadow of a man. If this video gave you real value, tap the thanks button. Your support helps me keep creating deeper content like this. Every thanks is a spark that keeps this mission alive. Your support means more than you know. You are remembering who you truly are. You are deliberately stepping into your terrifying, rightful power. You are forging the man your desperate past self always dreamed you would be. The world is about to witness the spectacular transformation of a man whose essence and will have become unified. You are not weak. You are merely waking up. And when you finally stand in your full power, the world will have no choice but to bend to your new reality.